Very good afternoon. I see both Ari and I see Heinrich also. Yes. Let me just extend a welcome to you again and for your participation here. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, hoping to learn a little bit more about fly fishing and also the analogy that you have made, Ari. I know it's a passion of yours. I see you, follow you on social media. I hear in some of the conversations also how much pleasure you find out of this activity. But it's good to have this a combination of the two of you who also have played in the getting the Rolling Inspiration magazine to where it is today. Thank you for your contribution towards that and the intellectual property that you so selflessly provide now that you have more time on your hands, not only to fly fish, but also to share especially your business experience and the analogy that you've made so eloquently that I enjoyed reading in the latest session, latest issue of Rolling Inspiration. So good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Raven. Heinrich, how are you, young man?
Good yourself?
Very well. You look nice and relaxed, and you've lost a bit of weight, eh?
I don't know. maybe I have COVID. Maybe it's stress. I don't know. But you're looking fine.
No, I'm fine. Thank you. Yeah. Since my last interview this morning, Raven, you've worked hard today, I see. Even though you might have seen my name up on the screen here, I will tell you I was on the other side of the wall of this study on my veranda. I had a lovely glass of Merlot, and I actually had a piece of trout with some salad for lunch, getting myself ready for this discussion. So, and just for when you're ready to talk, I brought an artifact with me. I bought something that Heinrich will recognize.
Oh,
Hey?
yes.
And remember, Heinrich, you on this thing, you got so into this project, you even
The old FW and Seaman logo.
no, who was this again? Famous Roman godman, who the figure
Yes,
of
yeah, that's Da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, it's still there, hasn't faded. In fact, in all these years, only one strap broke that I had to repair.
Oh,
That's from getting wet and dry so many times.
How many years has it been?
gee.
I would say 30 years, Heinrich.
30.
When did you leave Durban? How long ago?
No, I have no idea. Jeez. I think I was married so long. My children is 9, 10, 18, maybe about
Sure.
25 years ago.
Okay.
That's a long time. That gives us an indication of the relationship that you guys have shared. Also, yes, Ari, and just in line with the duration that you mentioned now, what is it about fly fishing that has kept your interest for all those years?
There's a quote from Henry Thoreau, who is an American essayist and philosopher. And if you Google him, you'll see he was in the political times in America, those many years ago, he was a fishing all their lives without knowing that it is not fish they are after. Now, if that answers the question, it wasn't to go and catch kilograms of fish. It was actually to have a meaningful activity in an area surrounded by peace and quiet, mountains, rivers, valleys, dams, farms. So most trout are found in cooler areas. You talk about fly fishing and trout fishing. I'm a trout fisherman because you can fly fish in the sea. Now, I live on the coast. I live in Durban, and I go to the beachfront often, and I see the guys fishing off the pier. It's net sardine geese, and oh man, that place smells terrible. And they're squabbling, and there's brandy and coke, and they're fighting and squabbling, and over a couple of shad. And in fact, there's plenty of shad. There's no technique. It's just gooi and druk and pluk and argue. No, I wanted a good excuse to get into the mountains and the quiet. And so I joined the fly fishing club at Highbury. And it was all about learning to tie a fly that looked like a fly, simulating a fly. So, yes, it actually wasn't about fishing. And right now, it's not about fishing. I go there and I've got something on my head, and I clear my head while I cast. And but I hope that answers the question, especially that quote from Henry Thoreau. Many go fishing all their lives without knowing that it is not fish they are after.
Oh, very significant, Ari. Very significant. Thank you for that. You've got me thinking. I must just get the spelling, but I'll Google Henry Thoreau to see the quote and what he was about. And you mentioned where you go and fish, the location. You've mentioned the pier down in Durban where the shad fishermen are squabbling from. And that for me, it's inaccessible. Not the beachfront, but the mountains, as you mentioned now. Are you limited in terms of your location where you can go fly fish?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one downside. Remember, when I started fly fishing, I wasn't a wheelchair user. So I never crossed my mind. I used to love crossing a river, stalking in the water, hiding behind a bush, making sure I wasn't casting shade into the river, onto a dam, because that changes where the fish move. Or creating a shadow that might attract a fish to seek a shadow. Now I'm off the edge of a well-groomed dam, seldom at the end of a river. So yes, I make my calls, and I've selected a few places in the Camberg especially that have got nice groomed dams. Sometimes a jetty, a timber jetty, sometimes a grass land jetty that goes out. Interesting enough, with the timber jetty, is you've also never thought you'd get to such detail. If a farmer says, no, I've got a jetty that goes out to the water, I ask the gentleman, which way do the jetty planks run? Because if they run horizontally to my wheelchair, then you've got the issue of your wheels getting stuck between gaps. And so you try and find out if it's run vertically, and then you can only sit at a certain angle. So it gets quite technical when you're choosing the water to fish on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ari, thank you for that also. And just to bring Heinrich also into the conversation, how did you hear or where or your connection? How did you get in touch with Heinrich?
Yes, I would also like to know that. How did you actually? Yes, how did you actually find me?
Well, that Davenport area was well known for being the orthotist and prosthetist territory. There was all of you. It's like the stock market area of New York. It's downtown there. So orthotists and prosthetists, that was their area where they did business. And I'd heard of Seaman and Co. And Gary Seaman, I actually happened to know him. So I thought, okay, I'd give the office a call. And they sent me down there. And I didn't know who Heinrich was, but got to meet him. And
oh, wow.
the deal was done.
Nice, nice. I'm glad that Heinrich could have assisted you in the becoming a. I don't know if you were much more of a qualified fisherman before or after, but we'll get to some of that later on. And when I want to go into a little bit of a more of the detail of Heinrich, of the assistive device or the adaptation that you've made, we'll get to that more. But Ari, you've mentioned some of the setting or some of the location also, or some of the aspects that have to be in place for you to fly fish from. Or you said also that you make your calls, and you sort of timing and knowing the lay of the land. That seems to be very, very crucial or intricate when it comes to fly fishing. But now I see also the analogy that you made between good practices and also fly fishing. So what inspired you to make those comparisons?
That was interesting. Yes, I mean, I'm absolutely passionate about this subject. So, and I've actually been delving with this subject for many years. When I was on the public speaking circuit for many years ago, for a few years, that was my keynote address. I used to speak about the analogy of fly fishing to good business strategy. And when people got to know about the talk, I would often be called up to Champagne Sports and Leisure Club, to their conference center, and speak at conferences about that subject, because they had a lot of fly fishing there, and they used to integrate fly fishing and trout fishing into conferences to keep their delegates occupied. So it just made sense to me. What are you trying to do? How do you catch a trout? So how do you catch a shad? You grab a piece of sardine or a scrap of anything, piece of meat even, and you put some cotton around a hook, and you cast it in, and you just sit bait fast and hope that the shad takes a bite. Trout fishing is another. It's an art. It's a science. You really need to read up about it. You need to understand, first of all, what area you're going into and what are the bugs prevalent in the area. So, and is it hatching time for moths now on the water? Yes or no? Are there dragonflies in the area? Yes or no? What colors are the insects in the areas? Because you open your fly box and decide what you want to do is you don't want to compete with the bugs on the water. You need to integrate you need to be a bug on the water. Your fly, you choose whether, if it's a cold day, your fly must get down to the bottom, must get down. You want your fly to either sink and pretend it's a bug, so it must look like a bug, or if there's hatchings, you want to use a fly called white death, which is the same color as the white small miniature hatchings, and you want to cast into the hatchings, because those trout are all over those new hatchings of little moths. So you want to be where the bugs are, and you want to disguise yourself as one of the bugs. And if you don't have that fly in your fly box, and if you've got the skills and the equipment, you tie a fly right there and then. You get all your material out, and you spend half an hour and you tie a fly, and you present it on the water. Hopefully you've simulated and pretend to be exactly one of those bugs that those trout are used to every day, that they feed off. So it's the most amazing experience of understanding your market, your customer. Your customer is your trout. What's attracting the customer? Is it your packaging? That's the way you tie your fly. Is it your logistics? That's the way you move your fly around on the water. So you would cast it on, let it land on the water. And what movement does that fly have? Is it 2 pulls and a stroke, 2 pulls and a stroke, or 3 quick pulls, pull, pull, pull? So it's moving across the water, just like your customer.
Sure.
You know, how are you going to attract your customer? Is it with below the line advertising? Is it above the line advertising? And so you get to understand the trout's thinking, the trout's hunger. Is it feeding time? Yes or no? If not, then what are you going to attract for the trout to come and have a look in and take a bump at your fly? And if it bumps your fly, are you ready to strike? Is a customer taking interest in your product, Are you ready to make the offering and quote quickly before the customer looks around for something else to purchase? So there's clearly an analogy of speaking to a trout the same way you speak to a customer. And let me finish off this because I think that Heinrich has got a hell of a lot to offer to this discussion, especially because I could only get on the water because of his expertise, understanding what could work on my arm for me to be able to hold a rod. Is that once you've got the attention of the trout and you have a fish on the end of your line, the biggest decision comes. What do you do with that fish? Do you yank it and pull it and get it out the water onto the bank as soon as possible? Or do you play it a little bit, introduce yourself to the trout with small retrieves, with slowly bringing it in, not tiring it out too much, not stressing the trout. Bring your trout in slowly to the edge of the water. Get a nice designed net that's not going to cut and hurt the trout. Take the trout out the water. Make sure you've wet your hands so that they're not dry hands on the trout skin because they're very sensitive. Look at the trout, give it a little kiss, a peck on its cheek or on its lips.
Out.
And they've got lips. And release softly and put it back in the water and make sure that the trout will survive and swim away to catch another day. So with a customer, is it better just to pull as many customers as you can out the water, beat them up properly, get as much profit out of them as you can, and then eat them up, and then look for another trout the next day or the same day? Or release your customer, introduce yourself, nice pricing package, a good deal, make sure they like you, make sure they understand you're here for the long journey with your customer, and then cast again. You might catch the same trout with a different fly within half an hour. So is the cost of getting a new customer greater or less than servicing the same customer over and over again? A very important analogy, a very important decision if you're in the sales business to make is if you make the most amount of net profit or GP out of a person, or if you slowly introduce yourself and they go for a long-term journey with them. I hope that made sense.
Wow, Ari, it does. Yeah, and then with and I can hear your passion for good business and also your passion for fly fishing. But now with your experience of running organizations such as QASA, and including running your own business also, and you've mentioned from distribution to logistics to understanding the market, lots of different elements you mentioned about the business world. But what would you say is the most important thing that every business person should know? If you should choose one of them, what is the most important aspect?
Okay, I think I've said it in a way. It's know your customer. Know your customer. Because if you know your trout and you know what they want, you know what they eat, you know what they want, you know what they need, you will have a great relationship. Know your customer.
Oh.
As much as Raven, know your reader and publish what they want to read.
Oh. Thank you very much for that advice that you've given so freely, Ari. And I wish you many, many happy fishing hours. Yes, I truly appreciate your contribution that you have made to not only the organization, but especially to this latest issue, including the picture that we have, the cover pictures, one of my favorite now, because it is really at the track, it's a good time of year. We've heard about the prospects of getting out into the open because of tourism. In our tourism segment, we heard now a little bit of the market. We know the markets are not good, so some good business advice also. And all of this information is readily available and packaged in Rolling Inspiration. Wow, thank you very much for your contribution. Yes,
right.
And Heinrich, yes.
Quickly, sorry to interrupt. I did bring along my adapted reel. I don't know if everybody can see it. Just I don't have the finger agility to hold the little stem of the reel to reel in, and so if I tuck my hand into this and I'm able to reel in, and then whilst I've got the stage here, this is the adaptation that Heinrich made for me. In fact, interesting enough, he also made me one for my tennis racket. I'll hold, let me just get it to, oops. Be patient with me. It's the inside of it, and then the outside, which goes, it straps onto my wrist, and the rod goes on that back end there on the black side with those straps, and then I strap my rod onto this, and then I strap it onto my arm, so I don't physically have to hold my rod at all. So this is the item that Heinrich made for me 25 to 30 years ago that got me on the water again.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Ari. Thank you very much for sharing. Heinrich, I can hear now how you have enabled Ari to continue in the passion that he had. And it's not only, I was amazed now when I heard that you made a similar device or a sister device for his tennis racket. And it's amazing how to see how you enabled him and equipped him with the correct adaptation and tools, to put it such, to participate in activities that he has a passion in. But I'm sure it's not only for him. But would you tell me a little bit about the process of designing and making these type of devices, such as the rod for Ari?
Yes. Yes, I think the secret is that although with Ari, with Ari, everything is different. Nothing that works with anybody else works with Ari. Ari is a complete different character all by himself. But yes, I don't think I even casted his hand when I did it. I think I casted my own hand, because I shook it. When I met him the first time, I shook his hand, and I felt there was no grip in it. I was very surprised. I thought, this guy that wants to go and fish is mad. He's never going to fly fish. How is he going to do it? And then I decided, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think I actually cast, I measured our hands. My hands is about as big as his. And I think I actually casted my own hand to, and then made it from my own hand size. And then, yes, then Ari left the fishing rod there. And then, yes, you see, if you're working with special, you want to make special stuff like this, you have to think what you are doing. You know, your mind has to know what your hands are doing. So you have to be kind of sort of handy. And then the thing is, if you make something like that, you must see how it works. And especially with people which are disabled, you must see how something works. And then at a later stage, you must see how it evolves or how it progresses, because it changes all the time. Yes, so yes, I don't know if I answered the question, but then yeah, since we've done it, and then I only saw him, I don't know how many years ago. After that, I saw him as like 5 or 10 years ago. After that, I saw him again at I think it was at, I don't even know where. And then we mentioned that we should put a amputee article in the Rolling Inspiration. And the rest is history. I think dozens and dozens of articles later, Ari has dragged me on a quad bike down to Durban 4 times. Yes, so that was, yeah, so that was amazing. That actually changed my life again, which was amazing how great that was. That was one of the greatest 4 experiences, some of the 4 experiences in my life. I mean, to drive down from Joburg to Durban on a quad bike, 4 days. You go through a little bit of bushveld. You go through a little of Drakensberg. You go through some plantations and sugarcane there. It's amazing, just the different climates. And yeah, what an experience. And I think from there on, yeah, sort of a friendship grew. That I think, yeah, I don't think I can't get rid of him anymore. I like him too much.
Wow. Ari, thank you for sharing there. And there's one sentence in there that actually that has triggered my interest. I'll get back to that now. But thank you also for mentioning the fact that you've shared some quads adventures with Ari, and that is not included now, but I'm sure that this, we can jot that down for a topic to include in the next webinar, or maybe some insert in the magazine or article. But Heinrich, what you've mentioned was that you have used your hand to start the process, and my question was about the process behind the designing and making of similar devices. And it shows to me that you actually have to put yourself in that person's either shoes or hands, or see what it is that he or she wants to achieve. And that is the message that I get out of there, that you've modeled on your own hand to see what it is that the device should be, which should enable that person to do, or the activity to participate in. And have you made anything similar ever since?
Sure. Yes. If you can think about it, we have done it. You know, whatever a physio or occupational therapist can basically dream up, they dream it up, and we have to craft it. So yeah, we have made many things, adaptations to stuff like that. I've done fishing rods for other people as well. For Ari, we've also done. But yeah, whenever there's a need, you must just sit and talk to the patient and see, you know, we are working with plastics and carbon fibers. So, you know, that's just material that you can manipulate it to whatever you want. And you know basically what about protecting the skin, you know about the properties of the material, and you can cast with plaster and make nice molds. And then basically you can make anything. You must just think a little bit.
Raymond,
Wow. Yes, sorry.
Allow me to say that straight after I got my brace from Heinrich, I went up to the Underberg area, and I caught my first trout after a sort of a 10-year break from fly fishing. And I froze it up there. I kept it. I had half a kilo of rainbow trout, and froze it. And then Monday morning, I arrived back at his office and presented him with the first fish that I caught with the brace that he made for me. So there was a compensation element involved.
Wow. What a nice twist to that story. Wow. A great gesture there, Ari. And Heinrich, and I use myself as an example now. I don't like to turn the discussion around, but people with disabilities, especially acquired disabilities, they want to participate in activities that they used to, go out into the outdoors that they used to, but are limited with the devices and besides the terrain, but the devices that will enable them to participate in these activities. And I can see how you open doors and how you reimagine, shall I say, the life of that person, because now you're newly introduced to the world with a disability or with some assistive device. Would you, and I saw the comment that was made, we'll get to that now later also in the chat, but would you take requests from other people that is interested in adapting either a fishing rod or tennis racket handle holder, or would you take requests from other people that's interested in doing this?
Yeah, you know what, I'm an orthotist and a prosthetist, and an orthotist makes devices. So yes, if somebody needs a device, you know, they can ask basically any orthotist, or they can contact us. We're not here for advertising, but yeah, that's what orthotists do. That's what they do. So yes, and yes, no, there's and you know, maybe we have a little bit more experience, because you know, I'm turning like 50. But so we have done it for many years. So yes, maybe yeah, and you know, if you're in another town, we will even work with your prosthetist. If there's a problem, I can always give them a call and tell them what they should do, just as a matter of interest. Ari never paid for. He never paid for that device. He only paid with a fish. That's the only. I never charged him for it, and he paid with the fish. And the reason I didn't charge him for it is I didn't know it was going to work. I thought, let's just take it. And yeah, I would have never thought in my wildest dreams that it would mean so much for him. I never realized until I saw him years afterwards. And we were at a spinal congress, and Ari was talking, doing something, and all of a sudden, you know, he brings, you know, I didn't even, I think I recognized him. I didn't really know who he was. And the next moment he had this thing on his wrist, and he was casting over the heads of the entire hall. So everybody was ducking and diving for Ari's hook. And then the guy that made this thing actually is here today. And yes, that was a big surprise. So I think it's only then that we met up again. Now that I think it was at the SASCA conference that we actually met up years afterwards. Yeah, that was about 10 or 15 years afterwards we met up again. So that was, yeah, that was a little bit surreal.
Wow. Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing your fishing stories.